proud moment, I would say, for the people of south of Nigeria. And before I say anything further, let me say very good morning to you. Thank you so much for being a part of our show this morning. Of course, you know this is Rise and Shine. It's the early morning breakfast show on Spectrum Television Live. And my name is Janice Cobham. Thank you so much for being a part of the show this morning.
Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Akwa Ibom State. My name is Uyai Anekan, and I am super excited to be here to do this with you this morning. Of course, we do hope that you're following us across all social media platforms, all of which you can find at spectrumtv.ng. And also our Twitter is buzzing, live communication is going on there. On any topical issue going on in the country, Spectrum T Online is how you find us on Twitter. Let's get the conversation going. Lots of things happening in the country. Senate presidency has come to the south. Several wins and several controversies also around all these issues. You can get the conversation going on Twitter, and we'd like to see you there, of course. Good morning, Johnny.
Good morning, Uyai. At this moment, I would like to ask, how do you feel coming from South Nigeria? How do you feel coming from Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria?
I think I made a joke yesterday, and I was like, first of all, the Senate president is from my district, like my senatorial district, and I made a joke that bride price has gone up for the next 4 years. So anyone who didn't quickly do things before yesterday should know that they'd have to, consult the powers that be.
Yeah.
But that's just on a lighter note. It is very nostalgic, and even as the political conversation is going, it is the turn of the South, to have produced the third man. Some people say the third man, some people say the fourth man. The fourth man in the country. Yes. It's good. Now all we really have is the hope of how this is going to turn out, but it is really good for the eyes and the ears of everybody from the South. Let us see what our contribution is now really going to be to the country, as we have been given this particular responsibility. But it's absolutely a thing of joy, especially also because of the person of Senator Godswill Akpabio. That also brings all of that excitement. I remember yesterday when he said, welcome to the uncommon 10th Senate. I'm like, that's the man that we know, absolutely. Yeah. So this is good for all of us. We're excited about this.
Yeah, definitely excited, especially when we hear conversations of government of inclusivity, and the fact that it's been a while, a very long while, that the people of southern Nigeria have even been in that position. And so for someone like Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that has always talked about the fact that his government is going to be very objective, is going to be very free, is going to be a government of equity and fairness, I think would give it to him on this particular one. But again, I know that some people would say, oh, maybe we are actually conversing from the part of the yes, in the sense that, come on, this is our own, right? But we are all human, so it will slightly come in. But again, I know that it hasn't really gone well with a lot of people. There's been a lot of criticism, especially to the build-up of the Senate presidency and the inauguration and all of that. But we'll just hang it there. Let's look at a flash story for this morning. Still talking about Akwa Ibom State and what's happening in Akwa Ibom State and all over the world as we speak right now. Remember that on May 11 through to May 15, 2023, of course, this year, we had Hilda Bassi, a 27-year-old Akwa Ibomite, who decided to go on a cookathon for she was trying to beat an 87 hours. How many minutes now? 87 hours.
I think it was
87
hours 45 minutes.
45 minutes,
yes,
right?
Yes,
of Lata Tandon of India. And yeah, she did that. But then again, after doing 100 hours and about few seconds, we waited for almost forever, for the Guinness World Record now to confirm that she is actually the record holder for the longest cooking time of an individual, and that didn't happen. But fortunately, yesterday that happened, and one would think, is this some kind of coincidence? While a lot of Akwa Ibomites and those from the south of Nigeria and part of, several states in the country were celebrating the emergence of Godswill Akpabio as the 10th Senate President. We heard that of Hilda Basi being confirmed by World Guinness Book of Record as the longest cooking individual with the longest cooking time. But again, they're just a little bit of, I think we'll just take a listen to this and find out why exactly her timing of 100 hours was reduced to 97 minutes and some few
93
seconds.
hours.
93 hours.
Yes.
Here at GWRHQ, we have recently been reviewing the evidence submitted by Chef Hilda Basi for her attempt at the longest cooking marathon by an individual. The current record stands at 87 hours and 45 minutes and was achieved by Lata Tondon in India in 2019. This is a challenging record with strict rules that must be followed throughout. Including, there must be at least 2 items being prepared or cooked at any time. And the number, name and weight of each cooked item must be submitted with the evidence. Hilda fulfilled all of these rules. However, anyone attempting a marathon record receives 5 minutes break for every hour that they complete. This is to allow suitable rest breaks for the participants due to the prolonged nature of these records. In this case, there was a miscalculation when it came to Hilda's rest breaks, meaning we are unable to award the 100 hours claimed. I can now announce that with a time of 93 hours and 11 minutes, Hilda Basi is the new holder for the Guinness World Records title for longest cooking marathon. Congratulations, you are officially amazing. Here at GWRHQ, we have recently been reviewing
I absolutely like the way the video ended when you see Guinness World Record officially.
Yeah.
You know, at the beginning, after she had finished the marathon, there were all kinds of pictures flying around on the internet endorsing her as, you know, the person who's cooked the longest. And it's beautiful to see GWR break down why she landed in 93 hours and 11 minutes.
Yeah.
But it was, you know, I was thinking, oh my, one of the reasons was that she shut off her rest time, you know, in a couple of minutes, and that took out the 100 hours. Just imagine if it had actually landed on 100 hours, how it would have been. But this is still worth celebrating.
Of course,
93
yes.
hours, 11 minutes.
11 minutes.
And for them to have said it took time for them to review everything that made them come up with the fact that, okay, yes, she is deserving of this, you know, record breaking label. And yesterday we saw Hilda tweet and put on Instagram about how excited she is about, you know, this particular dream coming to bear. And I know it's something we've not really talked about, but then there's been Chef Dami in Ekiti who's been in the race to break, you know, Hilda
Hilda's
Bassi's record. And then sometimes it's like, yeah, that's her tweet on the screen. Of course, she said yesterday, this is the best news ever. Oh my God, OMG. Thank you so much. Of course, that was her tweet yesterday upon receiving that particular mail from GWR. So as I was saying about Chef Dami, there's been a lot of controversy, you know, people dragging her, people supporting her, and people have different opinions. I really don't have an opinion because I feel like but what stands out for me is that Hilda did something big,
Yeah.
giving other people the impetus to dream and attempt to break that. I'm now bringing it down to just Nigeria. Let's forget the fact that, okay, Lata Tondon had done it and inspired her. But the race of seeing other Nigerians trying to do it, but I think the basic problem here is the question of motive.
Exactly.
And some people are like, Chef Dam is not trying to break GWR record, she's trying to break Hilda Bassi's record.
Well, whether she's trying to break Hilda Bassi's record or not is not a problem here,
Yeah.
right? But just like you said, what's the motive behind it, right? Is it so you can do something phenomenal? So is it so you can do something that, you know, a lot of Nigerians will give you a thumbs up for it or give you a thumbs down for it? Because I think that for the past how many days that Dami, the Ekiti lady, started, you know, this her cookathon for 120 hours. She's had the most backlash that I have seen a Nigerian have in
recent
times and all of that, you know, because one, you listen to what GWR is saying about procedures, right? You find out that the procedures are very stiff procedures, and even the cooking is weighed. You don't have to. It's
Quality of the cooking.
Yeah, the quality of the cooking, the quality of the food itself, the weight of the food has to be the same, right? So it has a whole long list of procedures, and that is why it took Hilda 5 years for her to be able to make up her mind to train herself psychologically, mentally, and otherwise, you know, to be able to take up this journey. So it's a different ball game when you're even talking about Chef Dami. Right? And a lot of people have also said, look, it is her pastor that is pushing her to do this, and they just want to chase clouds and get, you know, some kind of fellowship for their church and all of that. But on that note, if you want to even look at it from that light, you'll see that they are achieving that purpose because the church is growing in numbers in terms of fellowship on Instagram, on Twitter, and all of that. But again, I'm happy that what Dami is doing, apart from her getting a lot of backlashes from Nigerians, she's also been able to get some kind of support as well. I think just 2 days ago or yesterday, was it yesterday? Now I can't remember exactly, but we saw a particular vice chancellor from a particular university, you know, pay her a visit. I've also heard someone say that they have, you know, offered her 100,000 naira as monetary assistance, you know, to what she's doing and all of that. So it's good that she actually came out, you know, to do this. it's also a publicity stunt because right now she is trending on all social media handles.
Yeah.
Now, whatever she's trending for, I don't think she even cares about that. But the point is, everybody knows Chef Dami as it stands. So in Nigeria, of course, you know that you can trend for the good reasons. You can also trend for very wrong reasons.
Yeah, and how you interpret that trend, that fame you have gotten in that moment, whatever she's going to do with it after now, the ball is in her court.
Definitely in her
she can ride
court.
on it positively.
Yeah, definitely in her court. But let's look at our very next story now, and that has to be the student fund.
Yes,
that
the
has
President
been
Bola Ahmed Tinubu, of course, a few days back signed the student law bill student loan bill into law. Of course, we saw that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu signed that loan bill into law, and his aide, Dele Alake, was the one who disclosed that to State House correspondents on Monday. Of course, the bill seeks to enable Nigerian students to access loans at interest-free rate. Of course, Alake had said to this end, the bill will boost the educational pursuit of the youths across the country, adding that to enjoy the facilities, students must show evidence of being indigent. Now, what the word indigent means, the students must show evidence of being more like vulnerable and in need of that particular help. He said that a committee drawn from all the relevant education stakeholders would be set up to handle the process of an efficient disbursement of the loan. Now, a percentage of the revenue of the Federation would be used to finance the new initiative. Mr. Andrew Adejo, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education, said the bill would rest the case of lack of funds hindering indigents' educational pursuit. Of course, signing the bill signified how the Tinubu administration intended to handle the issue of qualitative and quantitative education in its period. A lot of things, being outlined there. Of course, the permanent secretary said the ministry had experienced difficulty with student financial dealings through the student scholarship board, so they already know how these things goes for students, and more like there's already a structure on ground brought to law. But we know that in saner climes, in more developed countries, we usually would hear, oh, a student got a loan to be able to finance their education. And now, for the first time in Nigeria, that's coming to bear. The case we will no longer hear the case of, oh, I had to drop out of school because there were no funds. Now, the students' loan initiative makes it possible that anybody can get any quality of education they can give. Of course, there are procedures to make sure that you can repay the loan so that someone else can enjoy out of it. But they're saying even a percentage of funds from the Federation account will be set aside to fund this effectively.
Yeah, I know that when this bill was signed, I think that was on Monday now, when it was signed into law by President Tinubu, Ahmed Tinubu, it was really celebrated. I remember that it was the bill was pushed by former Speaker of the House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila sometime in 2016, and for it to see the light of the day today, it's something that is very commendable. We would say that truly, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has, hit the ground running.
Yeah.
He has signed a lot of bill. The electricity bill is one that he has signed as well. And then we are having the student loan bill right now being signed as well. There's been a lot of signing and signages, since Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into power. But let's look at, the flip side of this particular bill. I think we have a tweet that we can share this morning. To see how some Nigerians are reacting to this particular education fund bill. This is from Babangida Buhari's TM. He says education for all is his plan. Now in Nigeria, anyone will get access to higher education without stressing himself or his parents. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is here to make every Nigerian a quality education. Is here to make every Nigerian have quality education. I guess that's what the person was trying to say there.
Okay, so it's Lara Miles, as an undergraduate, if you know what's good for you, better run away from, okay, this student loan bill President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is initiating. Run, no. You are not guaranteed any good paying job or any paying job upon graduation, and you're already raking up debt. Okay, this is also an
Yes,
an angle.
it's an angle,
That's
because
also an angle. Because
definitely,
when we're looking at the fact that, big question, we really don't have the jobs. In Sena
exactly.
climes, when you get a student loan, you're almost guaranteed that you will be able to find a good job upon graduation. So people just work for the first few years of their working years and they're repaying loans. But we know we've seen graduates who have been out of school
For
5,
years.
6, 10 years, and they've never bagged a good job. They just do, menial things here and there to be able to feed themselves. But that is a big question that which should also be reviewed by the National Assembly. We have passed this to law. What other modalities are we putting in place to make sure that these persons can repay? Because we see that, one of the clauses there is that this loan will be given out based on the number of years the student has to study and their ability to pay back. So how are we testing and forecasting the ability to pay back? Is it because of the kinds of courses that they're reading and all of that? That is a really big concern that shouldn't
But
be
we've
swept.
seen people that have studied professional courses still come out of school
And
and do
have
not
nothing
have
to
no
do.
job, right? And when we even look at the statistics of unemployed people in the country, I think it was put at 43% or so.
Yes.
So when we are looking at a situation where the country is not even helping, to create employment for the teeming masses, how do they begin to pay these loans? Now, this is another side to this particular conversation. While we are also commending President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for signing this bill into law, there are definitely some people that this will favor. But what about the generality of Nigerian students that come out of school, universities churn out every year and can't find jobs to do? How do they intend to pay back this particular loan? But fantastic, idea, fantastic policy it is, for initiating a student loan policy or a student loan law where students can get, monies to run their education to any level and very quality education as well. But what the federal government should be doing now is to create that enabling environment to make sure that in saner climes, just like you mentioned, there are a lot of people that are in school and even still working. They have off-school jobs that they could do and still get money to also finance their education and all of that. So if we're not having that in Nigeria, in a situation where you can't even be in school and be getting a job, or let alone when you finish school and you're getting a well-paying job, what is the modalities that have been put in ground to accommodate such people? And that's why Nigerian students are very skeptical about this. I remember also that I saw a news item that is saying that, look, ASU is not even on the side of government with this particular bill and all of that. So I think that we should actually look at it from all sides and see what the benefits are and what the odds are in terms of this particular bill.
It's really true. It also behooves on the students to be careful as they go about it. Remember that there's a tendency for Nigerians to abuse an opportunity, and I think you will fall into a trap, a debt trap, if you attempt to abuse this. Let's look at how human beings think. First of all, some people who may not even need this money for educational purposes might go ahead to get this, to get these loans to be able to fund other matters of their choice. And if you do that, students would have to learn to tame their greed and every other thing where money is concerned, so that, like, that particular tweeter, that particular what do we call it now, tweet has read, we do not get into unnecessary problems. We do not have so much of a structure within the country that can make that to go smoothly. You must be advised. But overall, this is really going to come to the aid of a lot of Nigerians. First of all, before we look at the cons, depending on how we manage it, the cons might not be so overwhelming, but this is a good move. Like we've continued to see in the last couple of weeks, the president has been making moves towards making Nigerians feel and be better. When you're even looking at the electricity deregulation bill, you're seeing that more people can get involved into generating power for the country. So it's more like we are making policies that brings more hands on deck and taking away monopoly. And I think this also infers to even the student loan bill, and this is really good. If I would say it will see a lot of indigent citizens, students go ahead. Some people finish school, right, jam 3-4 years.
They're not in school
they
because they
couldn't
don't
even,
have
they didn't even have it monies to go and get their acceptance, they pay acceptance fees and all of that. So this is good overall.
But again, what we should be guarding against right now in terms of this particular law and access to these loans, it should be made in such a way that everyone has access to it. It should not be politicized while we are saying, oh, it is man, no man. You just have to know somebody here to know somebody there before you can get access to the loan. If we are doing something, let it be for the generality of Nigerians and not for a particular group of people, that will be able to have access to these loans and stuff like that. But let's move now to our very next story, and that will be our last major story for the morning. Of course, we gave you a hint to this particular one before, during the course of the early mornings when we started our conversation. The 10th National Assembly, of course, we saw Senator Godswill Akpabio emerge Senate President, beating some other people that were also contesting for that particular position, in that particular race. Now, there's been a lot of controversies. There's been a lot of talkbacks in terms of this emergence of Senator Godswill Akpabio as the 10th Senate President now. We saw that there was some kind of endorsement in the build-up of this particular inauguration that happened yesterday. Endorsements from even the president himself, endorsement from some, governors of the APC front, endorsement from some senators-elect as well. But it didn't go down well with some kind of people, some set of people. We remember Senator Ojuzo Kalu has been one of those, that pushed that he was supposed to, be part of this as well. We saw Senator Yari also not wanting to step down and all of that. But again, we would say that the will of the people, prevailed at the end of the day, because when we talked about consensus, candidacy for the Senate presidency, there were talks of, it's not constitutional, it's not democratic, nobody should bring a consensus candidate for us as Senate president. Let the people, let the senators do their elections and decide who becomes the next president of the Senate. And we saw that happen yesterday. Of course, it was a free, fair, elections and nominations that happened. And Senator Godswill Akpabio emerged as the 10th Speaker of the House of Assembly, or the Senate rather, uncommon Senate President, as he called himself.
Of course, we saw the fact that Senator Akpabio polled 63 votes to defeat Yari, former governor of Zamfara State, who polled 46 votes. And then when we are talking about the whole consensus issue, and then some people feeling like Senator Akpabio was foisted on the House, initially, most of the conversation that paraded this was, let the man who knows how to lobby the most, get in the work. So it's more like, Senator Akpabio and even, the people that endorsed him, he was able to effectively lobby his counterparts at the House, now 63 of them who decided to cast their vote, believing that he's going to do a good job, as their leader in the House. Let's not even forget that Senator Akpabio was the Senate minority leader at some point in the Senate. So it's not like his leadership as almost that kind of capacity has not been tested before. As a Senate minority leader, how effectively did he run the people under him? That can also would have given room for, okay, we believe in this man and he can get the job done. Eventually, it's just like some of the conversation we've been having about the president. He may now give us more results than even anticipated at this time. It's a big win for the South. It's a big win for Akwa Ibom State. But then, like the president what the Vice President Kashim Shettima had said, this is also a great move to balance the tripod stand of power in the country. We already have a Muslim ticket being flown at the presidency, and they both had said, the president and the vice president now had both said it is important that the Senate president of this country be a Christian, just to balance out, that power play there. And when we are talking about the tussle of, the Easterners wanted it to be theirs and the Southerners, but we can say in all of the history of the Senate, it is good that the Southerner is re-emerging again, and let's just work together, to see how these can be interpreted as major good for the country. But this is good. We also saw, of course, the deputy Senate president also being won there, and several, of course, it was Senator Akpabio who eventually swore in the rest of the House members who were elect upon his election.
I guess that was his very first major assignment to be done as Senate's president there. And that's a big congratulations to Senator Gospel Akpabio, of course, a two-time governor of Akwa Ibom State, former minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and what else was he? Former minority leader in the
Minister of Niger Delta,
Minister of Niger Delta, and now Senate President of the 10th National Assembly. We'll just take a listen to that particular clip to see him take his oath of office. He took 3 oaths yesterday. One was the oath of office as the Senate President. The other was oath of allegiance. And of course, there was another one that he took, oath as a member of the Senate as well. Those were the 3 oaths that he took yesterday. But if that clip is not ready again, we'll just move straight to Mary Joseph, who's standing by for the news brief. And when we come back, of course, okay, let's take that clip now.
He's being flanked by 2 lawmakers who put forward his nomination, Senator Ali Ndume, who nominated him, and Senator Adiola Olamilekon from Ogun State, who and the clerk would administer.
Fourth of the motion, say aye. And those who are against it, say nay. The ayes have it. This Senate is hereby adjourned till tomorrow. The 10 a.m. 14th day of June at 10 a.m. Thank you.
Obviously, Senator Gospel Akpabio there, 10th Senate President of the 10th National Assembly of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, doing what he knows how to do best. Of course, remember, a lot of Nigerians have called him the uncommon Senate President, and he's also a man of capacity. Let's give it to him as well. But at this point, let's join Mary Joseph, who's standing by for the news brief. And when we come back, of course, all the programs, all the segments lined up for you here on Rise and Shine. Don't forget, we have Daily Spotlight coming through too, where we get to look at some of the informations on the front pages of our national dailies. Just stay with us.
Heads of State and Government, Secretary General, delegates.
Users will be enabled by voting for Spectrum TV to recover for the lapses in still counting.
Heads of State and Government, Secretary General, delegates.
Users will be enabled by voting for Spectrum TV to recover for the lapses in still counting.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief in Spectrum. Live from Uyo, I am Mary Joseph. Our news brief this morning begins with a report that President Bola Tinubu has met with former President Goodluck Jonathan, his first official visit from one of his predecessors. Jonathan told journalists that he came to brief the president about some continental and subcontinental bodies as the ECOWAS mediator for the Mali and chairman of the West African Elders Forum. He said that there are certain issues bordering on the continent and the sub-region that he discussed with various presidents. In the meantime, President Bola Tinubu has committed to a transparent working relationship with the 10th National Assembly under the leadership of Senate Presidents Godswill Akpabio and Speaker of the House of Representatives Tajuddin Abbas. Tinubu made the pledge while congratulating the freshly elected Senate President and Speaker. While addressing the entire membership of the National Assembly, the President said they have all been called upon and accepted by the responsibility to diligently and faithfully serve their fatherland with the oath they took. He stressed that it is time to get on and move swiftly with the business of governance in the service of Nigeria. Meanwhile, Akwa Ibom State Governor Pastor Moino has urged Akwa Ibom people to celebrate the newly elected president of the 10th Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, who now recourse to party lines. Pastor Moino, who gave the charge at the Victor Atta International Airport on his way out of the state for official engagement, described the elevation of Godswill Akpabio to the Nigeria's number 3 position as a milestone achievement for the people of Akwa Ibom State. He therefore congratulated the Akwa Ibom former governor and second-time senator, Senator Godswill Akpabio, on his emergence as the president of the 10th Senate and charged all fellow citizens of the state to celebrate and thank God for it. In a related development, the chairman and CEO of TAF Media Group, owners of the broadcast media trinity of Planet FM, Spectrum TV and Thanksu FM, Tony Afia, has extended warm congratulations to Senator Godswill Akpabio on his election as Nigeria's Senate President. The TAF media boss, who acknowledged Senator Akpabio's towering list of experience, expressed belief that the 10th Senate would be in capable hands under his leadership. Afia also re-echoed his conviction that Akpabio's track record and documented political mettle will contribute positively in strengthening the day-to-day running of the affairs of the Senate. He also did not fail to recognize the aspect of national cohesion and fairness Akpabio's emergence will spur in Nigeria's political scene. We head straight to the foreign scene where the United States has announced a new $325 million military assistance package for Ukraine as Kyiv's troops battle Russia's forces in a recently launched counter-offensive fire. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the package will provide $325 million worth of U.S. arms and equipment. And finally, in sport, Chelsea have opened talks with Juventus over a potential deal for their attacker Dusan Vlahovic. This summer, Chelsea manager Mauricio Pochettino is keen to recruit a new striker for his Chelsea squad, although the Blues also have a decision to make over Romelu Lukaku, who will return to Stamford Bridge this season following his season-long loan at Inter Milan. Reports say Juventus sporting director Giovanni Manna travelled to London over the weekend for discussion with Tottenham Hotspur over a permanent deal for Denkin Kolosevic. We'll have details of this and more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's head back to Rise and Channel. We have Janice and Uyai on standby. Do have a wonderful morning.
Government, Secretary General, delegates.
Users will be enabled by voting for Spectrum TV to recover for the lapses in still counting.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on Channel 421 on StarTimes to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by cross them. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Rise and Shine, and we're beaming live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. We just returned from the news brief desk where we had Mary Joseph tell us about tidbits of global news. Also, before that, we had certain conversations already on Rise and Shine. The fact that the Guinness World Record has endorsed and recognized Hilda Bassi for holding the record of the longest cooking individual with 93 hours 11 minutes. That endorsement came in yesterday and saw Hilda Bassi and Nigerians celebrate very widely. Of course, we also see the fact that yesterday Senator Godswill Akpabio became the 10th Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, with 63 votes, beating the next up who had 46. Of course, this is a big win for the South and of course a greater win for Nigeria right now in the politics of the day. These and more are some of the conversations we've had so far. We also saw the fact that the president had accented to the bill signed into law, the student loan bill. Now students can get loan to further their education and not have to drop out of school. These and more conversations we've already had on Rise and Shine. One way to catch up on all that is if you're following us across all social media platforms, all of which you can find at spectrumtv.ng. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and let's get the conversations going. At this point, we move straight up to Spotlight Dailies, where we bring you information from the front pages of our national dailies.
All right, on Spotlight Dailies this morning, we look at some of the major stories making it on the front pages of our national dailies. And we're starting with Nigerian Tribune. The big story here says factors behind Akpabio Abbas's victory as Senate President and Speaker. You can have that story on page 17, 18, and 19. But let's take a look at the writer. It says, I will be transparent with NAS leadership, says Tinubu. How lack of consensus on deputy speaker slots destabilized G6 aspirants. Okay, we will stand against any executive move not in public interest, says Abbas. Moving forward, we have that Akeredolu goes on medical leave, hands over to deputy. Page 13 is where you get that story from Student Loan Law. Tinubu pledges more resources to education as NANS visits. Page 2 is where you get that story from Census will expire if not done this year, says MPC. You can find that story on page 13. And Guinness World Record confirms Hilda Bassi's record for longest cooking marathon. Page 2 is where you get that story from. Moving forward, quite a sad news here. Boat accident claims 103 lives in Kwara State. We feel very terrible about that. We also see that Atiku subpoenas INEC chairman as Obi tenders 188 additional exhibits against Tinubu's elections. You can find that story on page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune. Bukachua, why Tinubu must fundamentally cleanse the system. Okay, and then we have NNPCL denies giving Dangote refinery license for fuel import. Page 7 is where you get details of that story from. And those are all that we have on the front page this morning of the Nigerian Tribune.
We look at the Punch newspaper next. Big story on the Punch. 10th National Assembly. Tinubu's candidates floor APC rebels. Akpabio leads Senate. Abbas beats Wase Jaji, emerges House Speaker. Yari embraces Akpabio after defeat. National Assembly will be independent presidency hand-picked leaders, says NNPP and LP. Okay, we also see here governors mourn as 100 and 3 die in Kwara boat tragedy. Rescuers recover over 50 corpses, 50 passengers, children missing. Page 4 and 5 is where you can find details of that very sad story. Classified documents, Trump, aide arrested, faced 37 counts. Page 56 is where you can find that story. Of course, over 25,000 trafficked Nigerian women, girls trapped in Mali, says NAPTIP. Page 7 is where you can find that story. Fans crash website as GWR confirms Hilda Bassi's cooking record. Page 54. Ayeda Tiwa steps in Akeredolu, goes on medical leave. Okay, page 7 is where you can find that story. And that's all we have on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
Okay, we move now to all the papers. Let's see what we have on Daily Sun this morning. The stories on Daily Sun says, the big story now says National Assembly APC zoning prevails as Akpabio Abbas win. And we have the writer saying that Tinubu advises Yari, Kalu, others not to relent in service to constituents and Nigerians. Both stand with citizens, not executives, Senate President and Speaker. The story can be found on page 6 and 27. Sad story about the 103 killed as boat capsizes in Kwara. 15 bodies recovered. Governors will mourn. You can find that on page 4. Obi Labour Party tender IREV reports for Adamawa, Rivers, 3 others. The writer says Atiku wants INEC chairman summoned to testify in petition against Tinubu. That story can be found on page 28 and 29. Biafra, IPOP insists on referendum. The writer says commend Mbasoludo, Mbaka, others over call for Kanu's release. You can find that story on page 28. Ex-US President Trump arrested, faces trial. Page 29 is where you get details of that story from. And that's all that we have on the front page of the Daily Sun. Of course, we have congratulatory messages to the President, Senate President. We also have to the Speaker. We also have to the Vice President and all the people here. Of course, Deputy Senate President and Deputy Senate House or Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Benjamin Kalu, and of course the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas.
Moving on from there, we go to the Nation newspaper this morning, and we see here President, poverty should not stop any child from getting tertiary education. Page 2. Akpabio Abbas step in as Senate President and Speaker. New Dawn. Ex-Akwa Ibom Governor defeats Yari by 63-46 votes. Cardinal Rep triumphs by 353-3 over Wase Jaji. Let's put national interest first at all times. Our laws must protect our people, while our actions must guarantee the most efficient use of our national commonwealth. We also hear we will work in harmony with the executive arm, upholding checks and balances anchored on the principles of transparency, accountability, and respect for the rule of law. Let's work for our people. Tinubu urges National Assembly leaders. How lawmakers defied parties. NSIA's innovation program second phase begins. Page 7 is where you can find the details. Financial markets rebound on Emefile suspension. Naira firms up. Equities make 1.215 trillion gain since the suspension of the CBN governor. We also see here Jonathan visits Tinubu. Page 2. 103 die, 70 missing in Kwara boat accident. Page 27. Akeredolu on medical leave. Page 27. And that's all we have on the front page of the Nation newspaper.
We'll look at this day newspaper now. Ondo Governor Akeredolu writes Assembly hands over to Deputy, flies out for treatment. We have the rider here saying State Legislature confirms Governor's letter for medical leave. Federal government's generated 1.18 trillion from VAT company income tax in Q1. Page 5 is where you get that story from. Page 6, I beg your pardon. And of course, the big story here, Tinubu, Akpabio Abbas's emergence, good developments for Nigeria, according to Tinubu. And the writer says, it's time to get on with serving the people, declares readiness to transparently work with legislature, vows to remain a partner for peace, stability of country. Senate President, Speaker pledge effective cooperation. Adame APC will waste no time filling other principal officers, and SGF governors, others congratulate new National Assembly leadership. I think that's just about all the stories that we have on the front page here.
Okay,
newspaper.
We'll take the Vanguard. The Vanguard will be our last paper for this morning. Of course, most of the story is still 10th NAS, how Akpabio Abbas flawed opponent. I like the details. Nigerians want us to lift their economic burden. Tinubu tells Akpabio Abbas, asks National Assembly to work with him to deliver democracy dividends. Akpabio polled 63 votes to beat Yari 46 to emerge Senate President, extends olive branch to Yari. Others, Abbas polled 353 votes to trouns Wase 3, Jaji 3 for rep speakership. 359 lawmakers elect take oath of office. Baru Kalu emerge unopposed as Deputy Senate President and Deputy Speaker. I shall be just, fair, guided by Constitution, says Abbas. NAS goals 2.618 trillion naira in 25 years. That story can be found on page 7. Nigeria's oil output rises 15.6% to 1.3 MB/D. Page 19 is where you can find details. Some Nigerian returnees from Libya came without kidneys, bowels. NAPTIP, page 6. NIN enrollment rises 363.5% to 27.1 million in 3 years. Our plan for real wage, human labor rights, others, federal government. Atiku to tribunal, summon INEC boss as witness. Page 8. Benue government imposes curfew as communal crisis claims 3 lives in 2 local government areas. Governors ignorant of minimum wage sales, says NLC. Revenue from VAT CIT falls 18% to 1.18 trillion naira. Page 20 is where we have details. Father, 4 children, 95 others die in Kwara boat mishap. These are all the stories that we have. Of course, in sports, we see that Osimhen arrives. 22 players now in camp for the AFCON Under-20. And that's all we have on the front page of the Vanguard.
Okay, those are all the stories that we have this morning coming from the national dailies. Quite interesting stories, I must say, but our heart goes out to the 103 souls that, were involved in that particular boat mishap in Kwara State. I think it gives the government of Kwara State an opportunity to begin to check what's happening in their waterways and how they can abate this occurrence next time, because 103 people, that's quite a number of people that have just lost their lives out of whatever it is, that caused that accident there. But quite a number of interesting stories. Of course, we've seen that the National Assembly leadership torso has finally been put to rest. Principal officers have been elected into those positions of Senate Presidency and Deputy Senate President. And of course, we saw the Speaker and Deputy Speaker of the House of Reps being also elected yesterday. And for me and some Nigerians, and most Nigerians, not even some, work has started in earnest, you know, for everybody, for government, this particular administration. I also like what Akpabio tried to say during his, you know, speech yesterday, victory speech yesterday. He said, look, it's now time for national interest. We need to serve the people. And like you said this morning, let us see how all of this, you know, positions and leadership, you know, positions will begin to translate. I was talking to a brother yesterday, was it yesterday or so? And he says, oh, he's always been a Tinubu fan. I don't have a problem with that, right? So he was like, oh, you know, excuse me now, Baba is working and all of that. And I'm like, yes, we know that he is working. We've seen a number of bills that has been signed into law by this particular administration. But I think more importantly, what Nigerians are looking forward to is how all of those things can begin to translate into tangibles. Let us begin to see and feel it, and not just signing of bills here and there. We need to see tangibles, and that's what Nigerians want at this particular time.
Of course, tangibles. The moves are enormous. We can all see, but tangibles is where we're headed. But there's been a lot of story. I think something that ticked off a little bit this morning is hearing that the Naira has firmed up, and you know there's been some gains registered by the Central Bank of Nigeria since the suspension of its governor. The big question will now be, what exactly was the governor doing differently that all of this is happening in his absence? And of course, it will further push and strengthen the request of Nigerians that Godwin Emefiele, governor of Central Bank, although suspended, should be absolutely probed. I mean, we are seeing financial markets rebound on Emefiele's suspension. The Naira has firmed up. Equities have, you know, gotten gains. That's such serious issues. But yeah, that's one of the stories that really stood out this morning. Still looking at the front page of our national dailies, the governor of Ondo State has been ill. Earlier on, it was more like some speculations and the like, but right now he's had to hand over to his deputy so that proper attention can be given to his health. We do hope that, of course, Governor Akeredolu gets well soon. And we also see here that there's been a lot of generation of income from VAT, value added tax, 1.18 trillion. I mean, talking money this morning, looks like one way or the other, there's been some increase coming in the financial sector, and this is good. Of course, we continue to see the president give his words as to his expectation with the people working with him, and he has said good development is important for Nigeria at this time. For a man who has hit the ground running, let's see how he will collaboratively work with the 10th NAS. Of course, we cannot even forget that there are speculations of will this National Assembly, will the 10th NAS be a stooge as they were handpicked by the president?
You know, there's something, there's a particular story I was trying to look for to corroborate with what you're saying.
Yes.
Now, the National Assembly won't be independent. Presidency handpicked leaders. Now, that's coming from NNPP and Labour Party as well. Now, we know also that there was some sort of endorsement. There was some sort of talks about consensus candidacy and all of that. And this is one line of conversation that, you know, had trended for the most of the time when we talk about the build up to this particular inauguration that happened yesterday and all of that kind of endorsement. Now, don't forget that we've always had conversations and saying that, look, the president should even be devoid and not interfere in the selection of who becomes the Senate president or not. Now, aside from the fact that, you know, the 9th Assembly has given themselves the credence that, look, we passed the most bills and all of that, you know, most citizen how do I put it now? Citizen-oriented or friendly bills now. We are also looking at a situation where Nigerians did not quite give a thumbs up to the 9th Assembly in terms of the fact that, oh, they allowed the president borrowed so much and put the country in the debt profile that we are having at this moment. And so Nigerians are like, okay, so the president should actually be not involved. There should not be that interferences. But whether we like it or not, it's quite difficult to say that the president won't
absolutely
working relationship between the Senate president and the president himself. But again, we see the NMPP and the Labour Party come out to say that, look, the likes of Akpabio and Baz, would be like some kind of rubber stamp because the president handpicked them. So they will not have that, freedom to be able to tell the president, no, this particular move you're trying to make is not to the, the good of the generality of the country and all of that. But again, I think I was also trying to look for something where, they also said that we will stand, I think I've seen it now, we will stand with citizens and not executives. Now, this is coming from the Senate president and the speaker as well. We will stand with citizens and not with the executive. So we are looking forward to holding these people, by their words. Now, they have said that they are not going to be standing with the executives, not also meaning that they will not be taking what the executive is doing, the Senate and the House of Representatives now. But we need to see how all of this can be translated to what will affect the citizens. We've also always talked about anti-citizen bills being passed. We need to see how all of this will be translated to bills that are people-oriented and citizen-oriented. And let us begin to feel the tangibles, like I said earlier.
Well, this is definitely all that we have as strong stories this morning on the front pages of our national dailies. Okay, we also see here that NSIA's innovation program second phase begins. You would like to find the second, the details of that story on page 7, just in case it's something that can benefit you. Page 7, NSIA's innovation program kickstarts second phase. Find the details on page 7 of the Nation newspaper. This is definitely all that we have on the front page of our national dailies at strong points. Of course, we are up for you to bring the conversations alive on our social media handles. We can take real-time conversations on Twitter at SpectrumT Online. We are waiting to hear, how do you feel about the emergence of Senator Godswill Akpabio as the Senate President of the Federal Republic, and also the Constitution of the National Assembly, as it were? What are your expectations? Let's get the conversation going. At this point, we will take a quick break, and when we return, we'll be joined with our guests to look into certain issues, more matters arising in Nigeria. Do stay with us. After the break, Rise and Shine continues.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai and Yekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on Channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories, and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly, our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court, my lord.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai and Yekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
many thanks for still being there. Of course, it's Rise and Shine, and we are looking at our focus conversation for this morning. More like I and we are of the same gender, and we have decided this morning that we'll be having gender conversations. But most importantly, it is very important and necessary for us to have this conversation this morning. We are looking at democracy, 23 years of unbroken democracy. What has been the place of women? And then when we look back even to this present administration and all of the elections that have, like, how many women are being represented at the Senate and even at the reps, is quite shocking to see that this particular administration and elections has shown a very abysmal performance in the representation of women, and it's quite pathetic and quite worrying as well, even when we talk about democracy and the place of women in democracy, in today's democracy. But joining us to, share some experience and light on this conversation is Nafisa Atiku Adejuwon. She is the executive director, Girls Just Want to Run initiative. She's joining us virtually this morning from the capital city, Abuja. Good morning, Nafisa, and thank you so much for being a part of our show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Quite sadly, 23 years of achieving this feat so far as a country.
Okay, thank you for your question. It's a great thing to celebrate that we had about 23, quite a number of years of uninterrupted democracy. It shows at least there's a certain level of growth in the way we conduct our politics and our governance, and that's something to be applauded, right? Irrespective of how toxic it might seem at the moment. But what have been the place of women in advancing this, notable achievement of sustained democracy? It suffices to say that it's not been very impressive when it comes down to local councils or local governments, from the state to the federal to the regional. For example, look at the elections that we just had. We have only 3 women senators and about 18 House of Representatives across the entire country. Those are very dismal figures. Those are really terrible figures, and it shows that women are being used as a tool or a means to an end. So we usually see women in the political landscape or the political ecosystem being used as campaigners, mobilizers, the ones that wear the wrappers and the adherers and the ashwebi and things, and mobilize for political candidates at the community level and the state level. But when it comes to decision making, right, when it comes to appointments and special assistants, commissioners, ministers, you see them being positions that are being held in the arm of body. You hear legislators at the federal house, at the Senate, talk about their wives like as if they are cattle or they are people to control, rather than women and people who have their own agency, have their own rights, and have their own issues that should be tackled. So it was about 2 days ago that we had the senator saying that he had a wife who was an appeal court judge, and anytime he needed something from his colleagues, he would influence her in the home to make and to obtain a favorable judgment. That's not the place of women, right, in society. Yes, we can say that women have dual responsibilities and dual, facets of life as being homemakers, mothers, etc. But they do have a place, not just in the kitchen, not just in the home, but also as leaders of, leaders of industry, leaders in politics, leaders in governance, responsibilities when we produce women who've done incredibly well on a global and national level.
Now, when we even, I'm happy that you brought in the figures that we have in this particular Senate and House of Representatives. It's really, really small as compared to even 2019, where we had about how many now? Quite a number of women represented in 2019 and even in the 9th Assembly. But that number has considerably dropped in this 10th Assembly. And I hear you say that women have the capacity, but who seems to be, I know that it's been quite a number of years we've been talking about sensitizing women on women empowerment, allowing them to understand that their place is not just in the home front, keeping the home and all of that. They should be more vocal. But where's the problem coming from as we speak?
I think it's basically to draw attention to the entire political parties, but that's not the only, avenue to enter into a position of leadership in governance. We have appointments as well. We have, you can be appointed as a minister, you can be appointed as a commissioner, secretary, secretary to the government of the federation. There are so many different, avenues. So when we try to put blame, right, I will move here. I said that, different countries have different policies set down that give credence or give legitimacy to affirmative action. That is 35% for women at the minimum across every, across every facet of leadership within public sector governance. We don't have that. And that's why we're lagging so far behind. I'm really happy that with the new administration, right, the issue of women and women in leadership and governance, public sector governance to be specific, has now become, he wants to see more women involved. We have different political leaders coming to see the president and saying, they are really trying to see what they can do for women. I was on my way to work this morning. I was listening to, I think was a local government chairman, and he was saying that across all the councils that they have, the post for secretary and vice chairman are now being reserved for women. So the and that's in Abuja here. So the conversation on including women is slowly gathering momentum, and we need to, how do I say it? We need to put more fire under the pot or under the stove so that it hits a crisp if we put our foot to the pedal and we want to. And I think a good place to start from will be resurrecting the gender bills, right, that didn't exactly succeed in the 9th National Assembly. The gender bills that were advocating for additional seats or affirmative action, right, or even the national gender bill. These are things that we should revisit, because like it or not, policy are the gateways for a progressive society, progressive development in the places where, decisions are made.
That's those numbers you're giving really helps. And because if we do a little bit of history, pre-colonial era, we seem to have had more women involved in the administrative running of society and government as it was than not. And one of the conversations just before the 10th NAS was constituted was the fact that there was a push by the gender association within the National Assembly to see how the vacancies for deputies were reserved for women. For instance, now we should have seen more women involved in the race at this particular time, but it's been constituted as of yesterday, and all of those 4 vacancies are filled with men. Like you gave us the numbers earlier, we even have fewer women in this particular administration. How do you think that we'll be able to balance out the numerical strength that we need? The numbers are already low, so even if we want to appoint more women to take principal officer positions within the National Assembly,
I think that we can do to advance, the interest of women within the 10th National Assembly and, nationally, practice steps in including women by appointments. The ministers have not been announced yet. He needs to be more proactive and more gender sensitive when appointing people into those very delicate offices and give women, a level of equality or equity, we can say. But when it comes to legislative arm of government, right, will be in the next general elections. But what those women can do is through collaborations and partnerships, because stakeholders across board, right? We can't fight a gender equality equity war on our own. 3 women against how many senators, or 18 women against how many House of Representative members. We need to be able to form collaborations across, handshakes across the country. Women being empowered economically makes better sense for families. Women being put in leadership positions makes better sense for the entire country, because you're seeing when women are able to make bills or bring to the expect a man to push a bill about reproductive health rights. It can't happen because he really doesn't understand the problem, because he's not a woman. But I think within the legislative arm of government, more partnerships are needed, more collaborations are needed, more bringing male senators, all these male House of Representatives, have women constituents in their, in the places where they represent. So they do have to appeal to a certain part or certain demographic interest when you're looking through the field of politics. How can you appeal to the women constituents? Partner with us on this women bill, partner with us on this gender sensible, let's push it. It's really about a game of personal interest.
Sure.
But leaving aside the issue of politics etc. within the legislative arm. I think we need to do more when it comes to aptly include women. And the current president did have a part of his manifesto that was specifically targeted because so far his key appointments have been male. So we have to wait and see.
Now, we've been talking about 35% affirmative action for women since the women that 35% affirmative action or even representation. Now, what do you think is the problem here? Because let's even take it back to last year where a number of bills were pushed. You talked about collaborations. A number of bills were pushed at the National Assembly to see how women can be allocated that particular special seats for women in National and State Assembly. All of those bills were pushed aside in Fourth Republic, and up till this moment we've not been able to give women. When will it be possible for us to give women as a nation that 35% affirmative action?
Well, I think there is no of people who have the elected representatives, political office holders who have just been sworn in, have sort of been bringing up the conversation of women in politics, in the sense that CSOs need to form a level of solidarity and keep on pushing. When they're not too young to run, hands together to push the not too young to run bill. As a House of Reps member, it was seen as an aberration. Your constituents will literally call you and say, we will not vote for you if you do not vote for this bill. Make women's issues frontline issues in the next election. That's how we form pressure on the political office holders. That's how we form pressure on the presidency and say that this is a non-negotiable issue. They're not young to run.
Continue to put pressure. And then the bills are being passed, if the bills will be passed. But it's yet another thing for us to see women begin to take advantages of these pushes. I don't, having the National Assembly assent to.
I don't think that's the angle here, because if they were passed, it's enough in the women that actually do need to step into these positions and run for office. When we talk about women, we have women that are facing a whole lot of things when it comes to gender-based violence, lack of education, economic empowerment, buying forms, etc. So there's that whole sector that is constantly undergoing intervention, and you have different people empowered to make sure that those that are facing gender-based violence within the political landscape, because there's gender-based violence as a whole, and then there's violence that happens to women within politics. There are people that are solving those things, right? And you see a man that has a straight shoot to the finish line, and then you see a woman that has like many hurdles, not taking advantage per se, might not be a really accurate description of what is happening. So if you now see many, what they call it, there are so many roadblocks, the misogyny, the patriarchy, the cultural conceptions that are false of why women advantage of the opportunities that are there. But there are so many roadblocks in front of the opportunities itself.
Still speaking about hurdles, and I know a question I wanted to ask is, in as much as we are pushing the conversation to have more women involved, and you're selling us the narrative that it's not like we don't have women interested, is one thing to open up the room for women. We know we have a lot of women pushing to be tech women, pushing to be CEOs in other sectors of the economy. Election cycle, we had Khadija Okonu Lamidi push, when she put forth her as skin. In your sphere of experience and interaction in this area, do you think you have women within under 40 women interested? Do we still have women to fill them up?
Oh yes, definitely. I personally know their party. We have Simi Olushola. She ran for State House of Assembly, right? I think is it government chairman. I think in Edo State, she just obtained the PDP ticket and she's going to run. We have Marilyn Okowa, who was just elected yesterday, Delta State House of Assembly. We have for the ones that I'm mentioning, there are at least a dozen or more than it tested for State House in Nasarawa State. She didn't win. She became a special assistant, and then she tried to contest again. These are all right.
Are there platforms where all of these women come together and try to push the agenda? Because I think platforms where all of these women with these same aspirations meet and try to push themselves to break even.
CSO space, in the sense that not everyone is grouped together when it comes to women's issues. Currently, there isn't anything like that. There are imitations of that particular effort, but not platforms being created. So you have some platforms that are specially created for those women that are under 35, and be some sort of intergenerational mentorship that happens within those two groups, which is something that has been really efforts of trying to put everyone under one umbrella, but not something that has collapsed everyone.
But in the political space,
yes,
also.
in achieving some political kinds of relevance.
I know the things that happen within the political space. Underline everything, you need to understand that this system is a very toxic system, a lot, right? I remember saying earlier on that there is a high level of gender-based violence within the political systems. She wanted to run, and they told her that she should step down for another person, a male candidate. This is not even like, this is like a local, and they raped her in front of her son. These are things that happen, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. How about the ones that the school systems, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing to protect these women? At least we're talking about gender-based violence within universities, right? So by the time you have women that have gone through such a dehumanizing process and they come out, some women are not okay. They are not good. The terrain must have been for them to get there, or the bullying, or the verbal insults, or they stand up to talk in a meeting. And
now these
so
are conversations.
it's so nuanced. And
yeah, these are conversations that we can have on and on and on and on. A PT that we go through the things that we go through just to be relevant in society and also stay relevant in governance as well. But at this point, we'll say a very big thank you to you, Nafisa Atiku. Senator Gospel Obotakpabio has said, let it not just be something that is being said. We need to begin to see action being taken. Thank you so much for your time with us this morning, and do have a great day.
I'll keep pushing these conversations. We'll eventually get there. But this is this conversation, and push yourself further. My name is Uyai Aneka, and this has been Rise and Shine.
Yeah, my name is Janice Coburn. We'll definitely see you again tomorrow. Thank you.